Hey guys, welcome back. This is Forex Brizio. It is just after 9 p.m. on Sunday, September 24th, 2023. Hope you all had a great weekend. And just back with another video here regarding the Heiken Ashi smooth indicator. Now, I've made a few videos about this in the last week. Some of them are pretty controversial. But I want to go back to this one more time. And this time we're going to talk about using two of them on the chart at once and using the line chart to take away some of the clutter. Okay, so let's get into this. So again, guys, if you watch the last video, it'll explain again a little bit about the Heiken Ashi smooth indicator. So basically what it does is it takes Heiken Ashi candles, which are calculated differently than regular candles, and that's outside the scope of this video. So if you don't understand what Heiken Ashi candlesticks are, go Google it or search YouTube, and you'll find plenty of videos on what Heiken Ashi candles are. But the thing is that a lot of people don't like trading just with the Heiken Ashi candles because it doesn't give you the visibility into the underlying price action of the candles because they're not calculated the way regular candlesticks are. Okay. And then I made a video where I didn't use any candlesticks and I only traded with the indicator. Personally, that's not for me, but I showed it just as someone who, if you're just a pure visual trader and you don't care about seeing the underlying candlesticks or price action, you could actually trade it without any candlesticks and trade it with just the indicator on your screen. But again, personally for me, that's not something that I want to do, but I did make a video on it about a week or so ago, so you can go back and find that if you'd like to look at it. So what the Heiken Ashi smooth indicator is, again, just briefly, it's basically takes the Heiken Ashi candles and it turns them into a moving average. Okay, similar to any other moving average in terms of how you set it, but it's just that it's using Heiken Ashi candles along the moving average. Now, what I have on the chart here is two Heiken Ashi smooth indicators. I have this one, which is set to a period, and I'll show you actually. Let me just bring it up, drag it over to my screen here. So this is a 50 period exponential, okay? That's this one. And then this one is a 10 period exponential, okay? All right, and again, you can set this just like you set any other moving average. You set the period, and you can set the type of moving average, okay? So you can play around with the length of this. I would not recommend deviating too far from this unless you're like a scalper, in which case maybe you want to make the shorter one like maybe a 5 or 6 period. But if you're like a day to swing trader, I think 10 is perfect, okay? And for the longer term one, I think 50 is good. If you're a position trader and you hold trades for a long time, and you're like I said, a position trader, then you could extend this one out to maybe even up to 200. But for kind of like for most of us who are like day to swing traders, I think 10 and 50 is perfect. Okay, but again, you can play around with it. And whether you use exponential or simple or linear weighted, it's not going to make that much difference. I think exponential is good. Linear weighted is very similar. But anyways, you can play around with it depending on the type of instruments you're trading. Okay, and you can use this on Forex or, futures or stocks or, probably crypto and, indices, whatever. So, but this is Forex I'm showing you here. Okay, so again, it's Heiken Ashi candles basically overlaid onto a moving average. Okay, and so it kind of gives you the best of both. All right, so we're looking at the Aussie Swiss on the 4-hour chart, just as an example. So how I like to use this is using the 4-hour chart as my long-term chart and looking for entries on, say, the 30-minute to 1 hour, maybe the 15, but the 30-minute to 1 hour is pretty good. Okay, so what I like to do here is I only show the longer-term one. In this case, on my chart, it's the 50. I only show it on the 4-hour and higher, okay, because I'm only using this to establish the main trend. Once I go down to the shorter time frame to look for entries, I don't need to see this longer term one, okay? And then the other thing you might notice here is that I have this set to a line chart. Now, this is a personal preference. If you want, you can just, this is MetaTrade, you just go over here and you click this button, and it turns your candlesticks back on, okay? But to me, this is a little bit cluttered, but I do want to see something. I don't want to trade it with just the indicators and not be able to see anything in terms of the price action. A line chart is almost a good in-between. What a line chart is, if you don't know, a line chart only shows the closing price, okay? So on a regular candlestick, you have the high, low, open, and close. That makes up the four components of the candlestick. Okay, the upper and lower wick, and then the body of the candle is the open and the close. Okay, so there's four components to a candlestick. On a line chart, it's only the closing price. Okay, so it's just the closing price, and it's just connected by a line. It just keeps connecting all the little dots of the closing prices. So all these peaks represent closing, peaks and valleys represent closing prices. So, right here, this was a closing price of, 58.49, 58.549, and so on. Okay, so line chart is the closing price only. Now again, this is purely preference. If you want, you can use the candlesticks, or if you're old school, you can use bar charts. That's another way of maybe quieting down the noise level a little bit. Is using old-fashioned bar charts, and a bar chart shows you pretty much the same thing as a candlestick. It just instead of having wicks on the top and bottom, it uses little hash marks to represent the high and low. Okay, so on this particular one right here, this represents the high, this represents the low at either end. Okay, and then this little hash to the left is the opening price, and right here is the closing price. Okay, so it's blue because it did close higher. Okay, so it's a different way of giving you the same information as a candlestick. Okay, so you can choose to use candlesticks, bar charts, or a line chart. Okay, not really the important part. Okay, again, the line chart's nice because it just kind of takes some of that noise away. But if you really want to be able to see what's going on, feel free to use the other two methods. What I wanted to point out is just using the two Heiken Ashi Smooth to help you with entries. Now, the other thing is you can probably use this on any set of time frames. So if you want to trade, I personally like the 4 hour and for analysis, and then using the 15 minute to the 1 hour for entry. If you wanted to use the 1 hour for your analysis, then you could probably go down to like a 5 to 15 minute and use that for your entries. But just remember, and you probably all know this, the lower you go in time frames, the more noise, the more chance for false signals. So I think using kind of those, low to middle range time frames is a good happy medium. It'll still get you a decent number of trades, but it'll filter out a lot of the noisy stuff. Okay. Now, just because I'm using the 4 hour for my analysis, I do want to mention that I always will take a peek at the daily chart just to see, if I'm looking at an entry where the price is coming into an area that, maybe is a key level on the daily chart. Is it a major high or low on the daily chart it's bumping up against, or whether it's support or resistance, supply and demand, whatever you want to call it. It's coming into those areas where you, where you want to be able to be careful of taking trades into a major level. Okay, so the 4 hour is my prime, but I always will take a peek at the daily, maybe even the weekly, just to see where the longer time frame is showing. Okay, but the primary analysis is on this 4 hour chart. Okay, and so if we just take, so right now you can see in this Aussie Swiss we had this big downtrend, and now it looks like we've turned up. Okay, so I want to concentrate on a few areas here. So kind of what you're looking for, there's basically three areas since this uptrend started. I just want to call out. There's a major pullback right here, and then we have one right here, and we have another one right here. And what I'm looking for is the shorter Heiken Ashi Smooth, a change color in the opposite direction. Okay, but yet the main indicator is still holding the trend. And so if we go down now and we look at these three areas on the 1 hour chart, you can see here again I don't have the longer term one showing here. This is just the 10 period one. Here was that deep pullback, and you can see it was red all the way down here, and then as soon as it turned blue, this is technically an entry point anywhere here. Now, if you took the entry here, you put your stop down here, okay, you know, you would have had a little bit of drawdown, but essentially you would have been fine. Same thing here, price went down, okay. Now, it did turn blue in a couple of spots here, all right, on this pullback, but this area is actually the area on the 4-hour chart, so you wouldn't even have used this. So, yeah, this little tiny blue speck right here, that's really nothing. It wasn't until you know, and if you wanted to use another way of entering, say, well, when it turns blue, I want it to come and take out these highs right here, so then maybe you would have gotten in up here, but whatever your entry method, I'm just pointing out that you have the pullback, the red on the 4-hour chart right here, okay, so indicating a pullback. This is obviously a much more shallow pullback, okay, and then it went, and then there's another one right here. Okay, this one obviously went further, but you can see this would have kept you out of this trade until it actually turned blue, because you can see the Heiken Ashi candles were still red going down on the shorter time frame, and it wasn't until down here. So you wouldn't have, you know, been fooled into going into this trade you know, up inside this rectangle, because you may have, you know, taken a loss and been stopped out. And you waited until this turned blue, then, you know, you would have had this move back up. Now you can see there are other areas on the 1-hour chart that don't show on the 4-hour. Okay, so if we take this area right here, okay, so this is the one back from this one, go back to the 4-hour, that's this box right here. You can see that you never got a color change here. So, you know, if you're following this system, you would not have caught this, you would have ignored this one, okay, because you're using the 4-hour chart to find your best places to enter based on pullbacks on the 4-hour chart, okay. And if you go back to this downtrend, you can see there were several areas here. A lot of these were deep pullbacks. You had one here, you had one here, you had one here. This one potentially could have ended up being a loser, because it turned red back again here, but then it shot up again and came up to the moving average. It came up to the higher Heiken Ashi smooth. And so maybe this one you took a loss, but then, you know, you would have gotten another entry here, which would have put you back in the money. And you had another one here, you had one here, all the way down until finally things turned around here. Okay, maybe this one would have been a loss, because now, you know, price went up and we changed direction. Okay, so all the way down here, maybe you had 2 losers, but you would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winners. Okay, to 2 losers. Okay, potentially. And then, you know, going up here, all 3 of these would have been winners. There's technically another one right here. It's a little hard to see, but there's actually another one right here too, okay, on the 4-hour, okay? So that's basically all you're doing, guys. This is a trend following system. You want to avoid sideways price action. I'm going to show you right here on the Aussie USD. To me, this is sideways price action. Let me just change let me just take this off, change the colors a little bit on this template. Okay, let me put this rectangle back. You can see what's happening here. We're kind of like going up and down. We're going red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, and nothing's really going anywhere. We're trading inside a range. We have this low end of the range here, high end of the range here. So this is one, and of course you're not going to know this right away. I mean, this actually potentially was a trade right here to come down, although it did turn blue. Both Heiken Ashis turned blue, so maybe you wouldn't have taken this, okay? But it did go down and make another low. But you can see now it's been, and this has been going on, this is a 4-hour chart, so this has been going on since, for, basically almost 2 weeks now. We're not really going anywhere, okay? So this is a pair I would avoid right now. There's no trend. Now, whether this is a transitionary period, now we're going to start turning up, or whether this is just a pause in the downtrend, eventually we turn back down, we'll have to see. We look at the daily chart, there is potential for a little bit more push to the downside before we run into these lows, so we'll keep an eye on it. But if you want to talk about areas that you don't want to get involved with right now, this would be a pair that, in terms of this system, I would not trade, at least not on this time frame. Okay? So that's an example. All right. And you can see this play out on many time frames. Here's the dollar yen. This one's been beautiful. right? Ever since up here, all the way up, all the way up. These have all been good signals. Now you can see sometimes when the shorter Heiken Ashi comes into the longer one, when it's kind of like inside of it, you might see a color change on the longer term one. But as long as these two are like intertwined into each other, like right here, you can see the little bit of red in the background where this dark blue one turned red. That's not a change of direction, okay? This is just a pullback where it's coming right into the moving average, into the longer Heiken Ashi smooth. That is not a change of direction. You're still just basically maintaining this. This would not be a change of direction until, you know, this thing really turned down, if it was going to, which it didn't. Kind of turned down, took out this previous low, and then we kind of see the thing start to turn and push back down. That's not a change of direction, okay, just because you had a little bit of a color change on the long-term Heiken Ashi. All right, so I would also recommend that, you know, you kind of use this on major and some minor pairs. I would stay away from a lot of the exotic pairs, although you can try it on any instrument. But the more volatile the pullbacks are, which is going to happen a lot of times on your thinly traded pairs, you might get more false signals, and, you know, even on the 4-hour time frame. And that's another reason why I like the 4-hour, because it's going to reduce the number of false signals, because it's a long enough time frame where it's sensitive enough for changes, but it's long enough where it's going to filter out a lot of fake reversals. Okay, and, you know, certainly that's what you want to try to avoid. No system's 100%. Like I said, I showed you on that last chart where you had 6 potential winners and, you know, 2 that probably would have been losers. Okay, but you know, if you follow the system. So, but follow the rules, and that's it. Okay. Now, in terms of this indicator, I know I always talk about like where I get it, to let you know. This is where I got it. This is on the MQL5.com, which is the MetaTrader market indicator marketplace. So if you go to MQL5.com, go to market, and then you got to pick either MetaTrader 4 or 5. I picked 4, which you can't see off my screen here, but because I have it installed on an MT4 account, okay? But they do make this in an MT5 right here, as you can see. For MetaTrader 5 version, click here. All right, but this is it. It's called Smooth Heiken Ashi, with Heiken Ashi all as one word. It's by Radek Rezniksek. I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry. And he last updated this on June 1st of this year. And then, you know, you can read people's reviews, and, you know, you can read the reviews, read the comments if you want. But then you come over here, and again, I know it's hard for you to see this, but this is where you download it and install it onto your terminal, and it goes into your indicator file, and you should be good to go. Okay? So if you don't know how to do that, you know, let me know, or I'm sure you can YouTube, you know, how to install indicators in MetaTrader. It's a little bit clunky, because again, MetaTrader is a pretty old technology, so it's a little bit clunky, but it's not hard. It just takes a couple of steps, and then you have to basically close your platform and reopen it for the change to take. But this will automatically install it onto your platform, and this is free. This is free. I told you, don't pay for these indicators if you don't have to, and this is a completely free indicator. Okay. And they have, you know, a little bit of information here. And like I said, if you're using MT5, you can just go to this link in here, and it'll take you to the MT5 version, which is pretty much exactly the same, but it's just coded to work on MT5 instead of 4. All right. And so, and I really like this. The reason why I like this one as opposed to the other ones that I've installed is because for some reason the other ones I installed, when I try to change the colors, because I don't like the default, you know, bright green and bright red. When I try to change the colors on those, it doesn't hold my change. Like, it'll hold it for that chart, but as soon as I you know, either try to put the template on another chart, or even on that same chart, when I like click between time frames, it switches it back to the green and red, and I cannot get it to stick. Even if I save it as a template, it won't stay. This one does. Okay, this one, whatever change I make in terms of the colors or the thickness of the lines or whatever, it holds it, and I save it in a template. I can apply it to another chart, and no problem. So if you're going to download and use this smooth Heiken Ashi, there's many different versions of it. If you just Google it, you'll find it on many different websites. Most of them, instead of saying smooth Heiken Ashi, they say Heiken Ashi smooth. Those are the ones, and there's a couple of variations, but they're all pretty much the same. They work the same in terms of how the indicator, what it does. There's nothing wrong with them, but it's just something the way they were designed and coded that they don't hold the changes to the color scheme. So if you don't like the green and red, then you can't really use those other ones. Now, if the green and red is fine and you don't care, then they're perfectly fine. But I like this one the better because the settings are simpler. There's only 2 settings to change, and instead of 4 on the other one, and it holds any changes you make to the colors if you decide to change the color or the line thickness. And to me, that's really important because I like to customize the colors that are on the chart. Okay, so for those sometimes ask where I got it, this is where I got this one. And you can go to mql5.com and download it, and just search on this, and it'll come up. And again, it's a free indicator, so you'll know when you got it because this is what it looks like, the little graphic, and it is free. Okay, all right. So that's about it, guys. And like I said when I was talking about being able to change the colors. So in the settings, like I said, there's only 2 settings. You get the moving average period, and then the period length and the moving average type, and then you can change your colors. There are a few other settings that you can have here. You can actually set push notifications and alerts, which I don't use. I don't even know really what the push notification alerts. I'm assuming that means that when it changes color, it sends you an alert. If you have it set up in your MetaTrader, you can probably get it to either an audible alert on your platform, on your desktop. Push notification would be like an email or a text message. You have to set that up in your MetaTrader. And I'm assuming anytime it changes color, it does this. I don't, for as often as it could change color, I'm not sure I really want to be bothered by that. And plot in the background, basically, if you're using candlesticks and you want to still see the candlesticks more than you want to see in the indicator, you change this to true. And what it does is it lightens up the indicator and actually puts it kind of like in back of the candles instead of on top of them. All right, so I guess I could show you what that means. So first, let me just change to candlesticks again. All right, and then let me bring the indicator back up. All right, now if you just look at the candlesticks, I'm going to change this to true. And you can see it's a very slight variation where it paints it in kind of in back of the candlesticks instead of in the front. It's a very subtle change. So again, it's not a big deal. So, but if you're using the line chart, it really doesn't matter. So, all right. So I just changed it back to false. And then you can play around with, like I said, with the colors. And in this case, like I said, the color changes I made stick, which is really big. Okay. You don't really need to change this color screen because the color inputs are made right here. So this you can just ignore. And then visualization obviously is the same. And then, you also could play around with the line thickness. Actually, I never even tried this. I don't really think I would probably do this anyways. Yeah, I don't think it really makes any difference. So, all right. So I'm not going to, bother you anymore with that. You can play around and customize it. That's the bottom line. And make it look the way you want it to look. Okay. The main thing is, what the settings for the moving average period and the type of moving average it is. That what you want to do with colors and line thicknesses. That's purely up to you. So, all right. So I'll leave it there, guys. So this is basically a combination of a Heiken Ashi smooth, and moving average strategy. Okay. It's not a crossover strategy. I guess theoretically you could use it as like a crossover strategy, like right here. I'm not using it as a crossover strategy. I think these 2 lengths, 10 and 50, is, if you're really a crossover trader, those 2 periods are a little bit long. So I'm just saying up front, you could use this as a crossover strategy, but that's not how I intend it. I intend this as a trend trading strategy. Okay, trend continuation strategy, and you know, figuring out good places to enter the trend, and it's very visual, which is nice, you know, with these color changes and the way the Heiken Ashis are calculated. So, all right, but you know, so check it out, guys. Any questions, comments, please leave them down below. Make sure you smash that like button. I really appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel if you're just finding it, and you know, give it a back test, try it out, see what works, play around with the settings. Like I said, the higher up the time frame chain you go, the more you can raise the two settings of the moving averages in the Heiken Ashi smooth indicator. And the lower you go, the shorter you probably want to make those. But again, 10 and 50 is good for kind of that, you know, shorter to medium length trader, kind of that day to swing trader type time frame trader. Okay. All right, guys, any questions, let me know. Hope you have a great night, and we'll catch up with you this week.